I took the ranger station job because I needed quiet. That's what I told people anyway. After everything that had happened in the city, the noise, the constant pressure, the feeling like something was always just slightly off, I figured a few months out in the middle of nowhere might reset things. Fresh air, long nights, nothing but trees and silence. That was the idea. The listing itself was strange, though I didn't think much of it at the time. Night Ranger needed. Remote station, high pay, immediate start. No real requirements beyond basic security experience and a willingness to work alone. The pay was almost double what I'd been making before. That should have been my first warning. The interview was over the phone. A woman who introduced herself as Supervisor Dale asked me a few quick questions, mostly about whether I could handle isolation, whether I had any medical conditions, whether I followed instructions well. That last one stood out. I follow instructions, I said. There was a pause on the line, like she was considering something carefully. Good, she replied. That will matter more than anything else. I started 2 days later. The drive out to the station took nearly 4 hours once I left the main highway. The road narrowed into cracked asphalt, then gravel, then eventually just a dirt path cutting through dense forest. My GPS lost signal about halfway in. After that, I followed printed directions they'd emailed me. By the time I arrived, the sun was already dipping below the tree line. The ranger station sat in a clearing, a squat wooden building with a lookout tower attached to one side. It looked older than I expected, like it had been built decades ago and never updated. No other buildings in sight, no nearby roads, just trees stretching in every direction. Supervisor Dale was waiting for me outside. She looked exactly how she sounded. Mid-40s, sharp features, no-nonsense posture. She shook my hand once, firmly, then immediately turned and gestured for me to follow. "You'll be covering night shifts only," she said as we walked inside. 7 p.m. to 5 a.m. Your responsibilities are straightforward. Monitor the radio. Keep an eye on the perimeter cameras. Do 2 patrols per night. 1 at 9, 1 at 1. Anything unusual I should know about? I asked. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she led me into a small office filled with old equipment, radio consoles, a bank of monitors, filing cabinets that looked like they hadn't been opened in years. Finally, she said, "You'll find a printed sheet on the desk. Read it carefully. Follow it exactly." I glanced at the desk. A single piece of paper sat there, weighed down by a metal flashlight. "Those are the station rules," she added. "Rules?" I said, half smiling. "Like procedures?" Her expression didn't change. Rules. Something about the way she said it made the word feel heavier than it should have. Before I could ask anything else, she checked her watch. "I need to head out. You're on tonight." "Tonight?" I said. "I just got here." "That's correct. Don't I need training or—" "You'll manage," she cut in. "Just follow the rules." She walked past me toward the door, then stopped just before stepping outside. "One more thing," she said without turning around. "If you hear anything calling your name from the tree line, do not respond." I laughed a little, thinking she was joking. She didn't laugh back. Then she left. I stood there for a moment, listening to the sound of her truck engine starting, then fading as she drove away. When it was gone, the silence that replaced it felt wrong. Not peaceful, just empty. Like something had been removed that shouldn't have been. I shook it off and sat down at the desk. The paper in front of me was typed, neat, official looking. At the top in bold letters, it read, "Ranger Station Night Protocols, Mandatory." I picked it up. Rule 1. Begin your shift by checking all perimeter cameras. If any camera feed is static, do not attempt to fix it. Make a note of the time and avoid that section during patrol. Rule 2. The radio may activate on its own. If you hear breathing, do not respond. If you hear your name, turn the volume down immediately. Rule 3. During your 9 p.m. patrol, you may notice movement beyond the marked trail. Do not leave the trail for any reason. Rule 4. If you see a person standing between the trees, remain still. Do not acknowledge them. They will leave on their own. I paused there, frowning. This had to be a joke, some kind of hazing ritual for new hires. It had that feel to it, overly specific, just creepy enough to get under your skin. Still, I kept reading. Rule 5. Do not enter the watchtower between 12 a.m. and 3 a.m. Rule 6. If the floodlights shut off unexpectedly, return to the station immediately. Do not look behind you. Rule 7. If you hear knocking on the station door after midnight, do not open it unless you can confirm the visitor on camera. Rule 8. There are no animals in this sector. If you hear footsteps that resemble an animal, remain inside. I let out a slow breath. Okay, I muttered to myself. Very funny. But even as I said it, I couldn't shake the feeling creeping up the back of my neck. There was no humor in them. No exaggeration. Just flat, direct instructions. And that line she'd said before leaving echoed in my head. If you hear anything calling your name from the tree line, do not respond. I checked the time. 6:52 p.m. 8 minutes until my shift officially started. Outside, the last light of day slipped behind the trees, and the forest began to darken. That's when the first camera feed went to static. The static wasn't dramatic. No loud crackle, no sudden flicker across all the screens. Just one monitor, top left corner, fading quietly into gray noise, like it had simply given up. If I hadn't been looking right at it, I might not have noticed at all. I leaned forward in my chair, squinting at the label beneath the screen. Cam 3, North Perimeter. Of course, I muttered. The forest beyond the north side of the station had looked thicker on the drive-in. The trees packed tighter together, branches tangled like something woven deliberately to block out light. Even during sunset, that side of the clearing had seemed darker than the rest. I glanced back down at the paper in my hand. Rule 1. If any camera feed is static, do not attempt to fix it. Make a note of the time and avoid that section during patrol. I checked the clock on the wall. 6:59 p.m. Shift hadn't even officially started yet. Still, I grabbed a pen and scribbled it down on a notepad. Cam 3 static, 6:59 p.m. Great start, I said under my breath. At exactly 7 p.m., the radio clicked. The sound was sharp in the quiet room, like something snapping awake. I froze for a second, staring at it. Then it clicked again, softer this time, followed by a low hiss of static. I waited. Nothing. Slowly I leaned over and adjusted the volume knob just a little higher. "Hello?" I said, keeping my voice calm. "This is Ranger Station." The breathing cut me off. It was faint, but unmistakable. Slow, uneven, like someone standing just close enough to the mic for their breath to carry through. My stomach tightened. Rule 2. If you hear breathing, do not respond. I reached out and turned the volume down immediately, my fingers moving faster than my thoughts. The sound disappeared. For a moment, I just sat there, staring at the radio, my hand still resting on the knob. "That's not funny," I said quietly. There was no answer. Of course there wasn't. I leaned back in my chair, forcing myself to exhale slowly. It had to be interference. Old equipment, remote location, maybe someone on another frequency bleeding into mine. There were explanations for things like that. There had to be. I checked the monitors again. Everything else looked normal. The other cameras showed the empty clearing around the station, the edge of the tree line, the narrow trail that looped out and back for patrols. The floodlights cast wide, pale beams across the ground, leaving the deeper forest beyond in shadow. Cam 3 was still static. I avoided looking at it for too long. Time moved slowly after that, too slowly. Every small sound seemed amplified. The hum of the equipment, the faint creak of the building settling, the soft buzz of the overhead light. I tried to distract myself by organizing the desk, flipping through old logbooks, Anything to keep my mind from drifting back to the rules. At 8:47 p.m., I started getting ready for the first patrol. I grabbed the flashlight from the desk, the same one that had been holding down the paper, and clipped the radio to my belt. There was a standard-issue jacket hanging by the door, heavier than I expected, lined for cold that hadn't quite set in yet. Before stepping out, I hesitated. Then I picked up the rules again. Rule 3. During your 9 p.m. patrol, you may notice movement beyond the marked trail. Do not leave the trail for any reason. Yeah, I said to myself, that's not happening. I opened the door. The air outside was colder than I expected, sharp and dry, carrying the faint scent of pine and something else, something damp, almost metallic. The clearing was quiet, not the peaceful kind of quiet. No insects, no distant animal calls, nothing rustling in the trees, just stillness. I stepped out onto the trail, closing the door behind me. The beam of my flashlight cut a narrow path through the darkness, illuminating patches of dirt and scattered leaves. The trail itself was clearly marked, a thin rope line running along either side, guiding the path in a loop around the station. I followed it, keeping my pace steady. At first, everything felt normal. Uncomfortable, sure, but manageable. Just a walk. Then, about 5 minutes in, I saw it. Movement. Off to my right, just beyond the rope line. It was subtle. A shift between the trees, like something stepping from behind one trunk to another. I stopped walking. The flashlight beam trembled slightly as I angled it toward the spot. Nothing. Just trees, shadows, empty space. I waited. There's nothing there, I whispered, more to convince myself than anything else. Then it moved again, closer this time. Not fast, not aggressive, just deliberate. Like it knew I was watching. My grip tightened on the flashlight. Rule 3. Do not leave the trail for any reason. Not a chance, I said under my breath. I forced myself to keep walking. The movement kept pace with me. Every few steps, I'd catch it again in my peripheral vision, a shape slipping between trunks, always just out of direct sight. Whenever I turned to look straight at it, it was gone. My heartbeat picked up. Just shadows, I muttered. Just shadows. But the rhythm of it felt wrong. Too consistent. Too intentional. Halfway through the loop, I saw something else. A figure, standing still between the trees ahead. I stopped. The flashlight beam landed on it. For a second, I thought it was just another trick of the light. Then it shifted. Just a slight tilt of the head. A person, or at least something shaped like one. Too far to make out details, but tall, thin, unnaturally still. Watching me. Rule 4. If you see a person standing between the trees, remain still. Do not acknowledge them. I swallowed hard. Okay, I whispered. Okay, easy. I lowered the flashlight slightly, keeping the beam near the ground, instead of directly on it. And I stood still. The seconds stretched. 10, 20, 30. Nothing happened. Then slowly, the figure leaned back, not stepping away, just receding, like it was being pulled into the darkness between the trees, until it was gone. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. Yeah, I said shakily, I'm done with this. I finished the rest of the patrol faster than I should have, resisting the urge to run. When I reached the station door, I didn't hesitate. I went inside, shut it behind me, and locked it. The silence inside felt heavier now. I walked straight to the monitors. Cam 3 was still static, but another screen, Cam 2, facing the east trail, flickered for a moment. Just a brief distortion. Then it stabilized. I leaned closer. For a split second, I thought I saw something on the edge of the frame, a shape, standing just outside the floodlight's reach, watching the station. I didn't move for a long time after that. I just sat there, staring at the monitors, waiting for something else to flicker, to shift, to prove that what I'd seen wasn't just my brain trying to make sense of shadows. But the screen stayed still. The clearing was empty again. The trail, quiet. The trees, unmoving. Too unmoving. I checked the time. 9:38 p.m. 2 more patrols, I whispered. That's it. But even as I said it, I knew something had changed. It wasn't just nerves anymore. The rules weren't hypothetical. They weren't jokes. Every single one I'd come close to breaking had responded. That thought settled heavy in my chest. I reached for the radio again, hesitating before turning the volume up, just slightly. Static. Then silence. No breathing this time. I exhaled slowly and leaned back. Okay, I said. Think. If the rules were real, or at least real enough, then the only thing that mattered was following them exactly. No improvising, no curiosity. Just survive the shift. That word slipped into my head without permission. Survive. I didn't like how natural it sounded. Time dragged again. 10:12 p.m. 10:47 p.m. 11:26 p.m. Nothing happened. No movement on the cameras, no sounds from the radio, no flickering lights. It almost felt normal again, and that was somehow worse. Like the station was letting me settle, letting my guard drop. At 11:58 p.m., the floodlights cut out. Every monitor went dark at once, replaced by dim, grainy night vision. The clearing vanished into shadow, the tree line dissolving into a wall of black. My heart jumped into my throat. Rule 6. If the floodlights shut off unexpectedly, return to the station immediately. Do not look behind you. I'm already inside, I said quickly, almost defensively. The words felt thin. The station suddenly seemed a lot less solid than it had an hour ago. The overhead light flickered once, twice, then steadied. I stood up slowly, scanning the room like something might be standing just out of sight. Stay inside, I muttered. That's the rule. Just stay inside. The radio clicked, loud, sharp. I flinched. Then, hello. The voice was faint, warped, like it was being dragged through static. My chest tightened. Can you hear me? It sounded like me. Not similar, exact. I didn't respond. Rule 2. If you hear your name, turn the volume down immediately. I didn't hear my name, I whispered. The radio crackled again. Hey. Clearer this time. Closer. Why aren't you answering? My hand hovered over the volume knob. Because I'm not stupid, I said under my breath. The radio hissed. Then, softly, hey, my name. I didn't wait. I turned the volume all the way down. Silence. My pulse pounded in my ears. Good, I said, nodding to myself. That's how this works. For a moment, I felt something close to control, like I'd passed a test. Then I noticed the door. The handle was moving, just slightly. A slow, deliberate rattle. I froze. Rule 7. If you hear knocking on the station door after midnight, do not open it unless you can confirm the visitor on camera. The knocking hadn't started yet. This was before that. The handle turned a fraction more, stopped. Then, knock. Soft, measured, 3 times. I didn't move. Another knock, louder, more insistent. Ranger station, a voice called from the other side. You in there? It sounded normal. Too normal. I stepped slowly toward the monitors, my eyes locked on the screen showing the front of the station. The camera flickered. For a second, there was nothing. Then, a figure stood on the steps, tall, still, face just out of frame. I leaned closer. Okay, I whispered. Okay, just confirm. The figure didn't move, didn't knock again, just stood there, waiting. I glanced back at the door. The handle twitched again. Then the voice came back, closer now, right on the other side. You're not following the rules. My stomach dropped. That wasn't part of it. That wasn't how this worked. You're supposed to check first, the voice continued, softer now. You're supposed to make sure it's safe. I looked back at the monitor. The camera glitched. The figure was gone. My breath caught. Then something tapped the screen from inside the frame. 3 soft knocks from the camera side. I stumbled back, nearly tripping over the chair. Nope, I said, shaking my head. No, 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 no. The knocking at the real door stopped. Silence flooded the room again. Heavy, pressing. I forced myself to breathe. In, out. Just follow the rules. I checked the clock. 12:14 a.m. Rule 5. Do not enter the watchtower between 12 a.m. and 3 a.m. I hadn't planned on it. But now, just seeing the time made the tower feel present. Like something was waiting up there, watching. The thought settled in my head before I could stop it. What if the cameras don't show everything? I turned slowly toward the narrow staircase in the corner of the room that led up into the tower. Dark. Silent. Wrong. No, I said immediately. Not happening. I turned back to the monitors and froze. Cam 3, the one that had been static since before my shift started, was clear. Perfectly clear. It showed the north perimeter, the dense section of forest, and something standing just beyond the tree line. Not between the trees, not hidden, out in the open, facing the station. It was too far to make out details, but I knew. Somehow, I knew. It was the same thing that had followed me on the trail, only now it wasn't hiding. Now it wanted to be seen. The radio clicked again. Even with the volume all the way down, I heard it. A faint whisper leaking through the speaker. Look at me. I didn't. I couldn't, because on the monitor, it started moving. Not toward the station, sideways. Slow. Dragging, like it was circling. And then every camera feed shifted at once. Just a slight angle change. Just enough. So that no matter which screen I looked at, it was there. Closer each time. I didn't understand how that was possible. The cameras covered different angles. North, south, east, west. Fixed positions. No overlap that should have allowed the same figure to appear in all of them at once. And yet there it was, present in every feed, always just at the edge of the frame, always a little closer than before. Like the station itself was being adjusted. I backed away from the monitors, my vision narrowing. Don't look at it, I whispered. Just don't look. But that was the problem. There was nowhere else to look. Every screen carried it now. That same tall shape, indistinct and wrong, moving in those slow, dragging motions that didn't match the ground beneath it. Each time I blinked, it seemed closer to the building. Not walking, not running, progressing. The radio let out a low hum. I didn't touch it. The door stayed still. No knocking, no voice. Just that thing on the screens. Then the power flickered again. Once, twice, and the monitors went black. All of them. The room dropped into near darkness, lit only by the weak overhead bulb and the thin strip of light leaking in from the edges of the boarded windows. For a second, there was nothing. No sound, no movement, no proof that anything had been there at all. Relief hit me fast and vanished just as quickly, because now I couldn't see it. Okay, I said, my voice tight. Okay, maybe that's better. It wasn't. Not knowing where it was felt worse. The silence pressed in harder than before, thick enough that I could hear my own heartbeat echoing in my ears. Then, a sound from above, a slow creak, wood shifting. I closed my eyes. No, I said immediately. No, that's the tower. Rule 5. Do not enter the watchtower between 12 a.m. and 1 a.m. And 3 a.m. I wasn't going to. I didn't need to. Whatever was up there could stay there. The creak came again, heavier this time, followed by a soft dragging noise, like something being pulled across the floor. My stomach twisted. It's trying to get you up there, I said to myself. That's all this is. Just another rule. Just another test. The dragging stopped. Silence again. Then, footsteps, directly above me. Slow, measured. 1, 2, 3, tracking across the ceiling. I stared at the staircase. Every instinct in my body screamed to run, to leave, to get as far away from that building as possible. Rule 11. Under no circumstances should you leave before your shift ends. Something will follow you outside. I clenched my jaw. Then I'm not leaving, I said. I'm not going up, I'm not going out. I stay right here. The footsteps stopped. Right above the staircase. Waiting. So was I. Seconds stretched. Then minutes. Nothing moved. Nothing changed. Eventually my legs gave out, and I sank back into the chair, never taking my eyes off the stairs. Time crawled. At some point, the overhead light steadied. The radio stayed silent. The door didn't move. And slowly, very slowly, the pressure in the room began to ease. I checked the clock. 4:58 a.m. 2 minutes, I whispered. I didn't believe it. Not yet. But I held on to it anyway. 5 o'clock came. Nothing happened. 5:01. Still nothing. Then, without warning, the monitors flickered back to life. All of them. Every feed returned at once. The clearing, the trail, the trees. Empty. Completely empty. No figure, no movement, no distortion. Just the forest, quiet and still in the pale gray light of early morning. I stared at the screens, waiting for something to glitch. It didn't. The radio crackled softly, just static this time. Normal. Almost. A knock came at the door. I flinched, but it was different. Firm. Even. Human. Ranger station, a voice called. You good in there? I checked the clock. 5:03 a.m. Past my shift. Still, my hands shook as I stood and walked to the monitors. The front camera showed a man standing on the steps. Uniform. Solid. Clear. Not distorted. Not too tall. Not wrong. Just normal. I watched him for a full 10 seconds. He shifted his weight. Knocked again. Hey, open up. I swallowed hard. Then I unlocked the door. When I opened it, the morning air hit me like something unreal. Cool, fresh, carrying the distant sound of wind moving through the trees. Actual sound this time, not that dead silence from before. The man looked at me, brows furrowed. You look like hell, he said. I let out a dry laugh. Yeah, I replied. Something like that. He glanced past me into the station. Everything run smooth? I hesitated. Then I said, there was a list. Rules. His expression didn't change. Good, he said. That means they gave you a chance. My stomach dropped. A chance? I repeated. He nodded once, like it was obvious. Most people don't get that. I stared at him. What is this place? He held my gaze for a moment. Then quietly he said, you'll figure it out. The same words, almost exactly. A cold weight settled in my chest. I'm not coming back, I said. He shrugged slightly. That's what they all say. I stepped past him, out into the clearing. The sunlight creeping over the trees should have felt comforting. It didn't, because as I reached my car, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. Deep in the dirt, just beyond the edge of the trail, there were tracks. Not footprints, not quite. Long, dragged, circling the station, over and over again, and leading, not back into the forest, but stopping right at the base of the watchtower. I didn't look up. I didn't need to, because I already knew. Something had been watching me from above the entire night.